Hey guys, it's True Man of Steel here to do my episode review of episode 2 of The Flash, titled Fastest Man Alive. Alright, to kick off my review, we'll start with the positives. Once again, Grant Gustin is owning the role of The Flash, and this episode really, I like the use of the flashbacks, something that Arrow is is really known for and does really well with. I was a little intrigued when I found out in this episode in particular, when they did the whole flashback thing, because I know they did in the pilot, but I wasn't sure if that was something that would stick. But it's interesting to see that dynamic between him and Detective West. Excuse me. And seeing how their relationship kind of started out, and it wasn't always easy to begin with, especially with him obviously not being Barry's dad, and Barry's dad being in prison for being wrongfully accused of murdering Barry's mom. So it's really nice seeing that. My favorite part of the episode is sorry, I stutter a lot. Is the dynamic between Detective West and Barry, because obviously they've had a really rocky relationship, and now that he has powers, it's in this episode it's a little more rocky. But then Harrison Wells has a talk with him. And he's like, you need to, if you doubt him, then he's gonna doubt himself, and you need to believe in him. Blah blah blah. And I really like that. And another big positive for me was the use of Iris West, because if you watch my previous review of the Flash pilot, I did not like Iris West because I felt like she wasn't really much of a character. She was just kind of there, just to be a future love interest, blah blah blah. This episode, it was a big improvement for me. I like what they did with the character, using like how she wants to be a journalist, and that was one of the things I mentioned before, was that like that's what I wanted her to be, and something I wish they did in the pilot. And now they're addressing it in this episode, like, oh, she wants to be a journalist, or Barry told her to be a journalist, and I'm liking that they're going with the comic book background, that character, and I like that, and I like the characterization of the character at least a little bit in this episode. Um, Besides those two, what else? Finally seeing the Flash in action. I mean, obviously we saw him in action in the pilot, but for me, like, I wish I actually saw like the Flash in action with his suit and the Flash logo that we only got a glimpse of in the last like few seconds of pilot. And I'm getting my negatives. Like, the villain isn't a huge negative. I like this villain more than I like the Weather Wizard type character from the pilot. Um, Again, they don't care in this episode. They didn't really look too much into the character himself. They're just kind of like, oh, like he's cloning himself, so then we need to stop him. Blah blah blah. I mean, they kind of delve into why, like in the end, like, oh, like I was trying to harvest, or I was trying to create a heart for my wife, and then Stag stole my research, so now I'm going to kill everyone. Like, it's kind of understandable. I mean, you kind of feel sorry for him. You understand his motivation, at least somewhat, more than the motivation of the Weather Wizard character, who thought he was God, and I thought that was ridiculous. And I'm one thing I'm really not really liking too much is the Cisco Ramon character, the guy who's supposed to be Vibe in the future, or at least that's what we all assume. He's too. I feel like his character is a little over the top for me, and just the way he acts like really really immature. And I understand like that, like in some incarnations of the character, Vibe can be a little like over the top, but I just don't see Vibe when I see the actor, and I think it's a little bit of a problem. Like, with Grant Gustin, it took me like a little bit to see like, oh, he is Barry Allen, and then with the Iris West character, like this episode, I'm starting to see that she's actually Iris West. With him, I didn't know, and from what I've seen, in Arrow, and then the pilot, and then here, I'm not getting a good vibe off that. See what I did there? Sorry, I'm really terrible at jokes. But see, do I have any other negatives? Not really. Oh, another major thing that I liked was the ending with Harrison Wells going to Simon Stagg's office, and Stagg was talking about how he wanted to harvest the Flash's power for his own, well, not for his own, but like, he wanted to like help the human race, blah blah blah. And Harrison Wells was like, no, he's the Flash. You're not going to do that. He needs to stay safe. And he stabs him and kills him. And it's like, dude, what is up with Harrison Wells? Because like, of course, last week we see him going to like that weird binary code room, and we see he had like that like futuristic newspaper article from 2024, In this episode, we see him like, well, he obviously knows that Barry is the Flash, but he hasn't gone by that name yet. He's like, his name is the Flash, and he needs to be protected. So obviously, I mean, it's still hard to tell at this point whether he's going to be a good character or a bad character. Because obviously he's playing the part of, he's in a wheelchair, blah, blah, blah. But then, when we see him do all this stuff, it's just like, well, there's obviously something more to him. He's obviously from the future, but who he is something that I'm really like that the producers and showrunners are going with that, because it makes the audience wonder, like, oh, who is this guy? Like, what role is he going to play in the future of the Flash? And okay, what else is there to talk about? Caitlin Snow, I liked her character in this episode. The pilot, she's okay. And Arrow, for like a little bit, her and Cisco were in kind of like that. This episode, I kind of liked her. The one thing I kind of don't like is how like a lot of shows is like the issue is resolved within the episode, and I don't know if I really like that, because how often is like a issue resolved? I don't know. I mean, realistically, issues can be resolved within a few days, but I feel like in TV, it's kind of bothers me when like there's an issue that is in the beginning of the episode and then it ends at the end of the episode. Just like, why don't you carry that out for at least an episode or two, and then just kind of like, because that's one of the things I liked about Arrow, because of certain things or certain story elements of the show, they carry over in a few episodes, if not multiple episodes, and then they conclude it in the later episode. Like the issue between Barry and Joe. And I like that, but then, of course, it's quickly resolved by the end. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I mean, I don't think it's a good thing. I don't really think it's a bad thing. We'll just see how it plays out in the future, if it ends up, falling apart, or if it ends up staying, whatever. Overall, I think this is a really good episode. I love seeing the Flash in action yet again, and I cannot... I mean, the unfortunate thing is I didn't actually get to watch the show live. I was at work until 10:30 last night, unfortunately, so I missed it. So I just got done watching it, and it's 9 o'clock in the morning here in California, and I just got done watching it because I had to download it. But again, overall, good, really, really, really good episode. If I were to rate it now, I'd give it 8.5 out of 10. Really solid episode. I liked it. I can't wait until next week's episode. What a great time to be a comic book fan, right? With all these shows, Flash, I got Constantine coming up, Arrow, Gotham, and then if you're a Marvel fan, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., whatever. All right, well, that'll be it for me. Once again, Fastest Man Alive review, 8.5 out of 10. You guys will be hearing from me next week for my next episode review of The Flash, and then tune in tonight or tomorrow morning, whenever I choose to record it, for my review of the second episode of Arrow. All right, guys, I'll see you around. Have a good one.